If I got a puppy today, I would do things differently than I have in the past. And here's the thing, you only know what you know, and when you know better, you can do better. And I don't think I've ever done anything wrong for the dogs that I've had and the dogs that I've raised. I know more now. And so if I got a puppy today, here is exactly what I would be doing. And some of it may not be what is commonly recommended or commonly talked about. And not because they're wrong or it's wrong, it's because I think that, again, we only know what we know. Sometimes we're being rushed. Sometimes we rinse and repeat, which sometimes rinse and repeating information is great. But I would raise a puppy for longevity, not just survival. I would be focused on how can I help? And I think we think this, right? Oh, I'm gonna love this puppy. I want this puppy to live forever. I would be so intentional. And so I would do things very differently and probably differently than I have in the past. The first thing I think about is their gut. I would not wait until there were issues with their gut to be proactive about it. I would start from day one of getting this puppy. I'd skip the traditional kibble food, likely, even puppy formulas. I would probably opt for gently cooked or as least processed as possible, as long as it was acceptable. It was formulated for growth. So when you buy dog food, on the back near an AAFCO statement, it will say what stage this food is designed for. If it's for a puppy or a kitten in that matter, it will say growth. And while I'm here, I will tell you if it says maintenance, that's for an adult dog. And if it says all life stages, that is literally what it means. All life stages, puppies, adult, senior. And so I would be finding a food that is as little processed as possible, that is formulated to support growth. And the reason for that is that a puppy's requirements are different than an adult dog, different than a senior dog. And so that's what I would be focusing on. I would start with rotating proteins and flavors and maybe even different types of less processed food as early as possible, whether that's freeze dried or air dried or fresh. Home cooked is a little tough to do for puppies because as they're growing, so their caloric requirements are going to be changing pretty frequently. So there's going to be a lot of adjusting that needs to happen. And so you can do it. It takes so much intention and tweaking and pivoting and adjusting. And so that's why sometimes it is just easier when they are puppies and growing to go with these formulated recipes that are already there to help support that. I would introduce whole food toppers from the very start. I would definitely skip the packaged treats. I would look at fresh foods, fresh veggies, minimally processed as much as possible, especially in the beginning, more potty training and house training and command training and rewarding them. I probably would skip all that packaged stuff and do fresh as much as possible. It's a way for you to rotate their diet. It's a way for you to rotate that diversity in their gut by adding such a beautiful population of bacteria. So there's so much diversity, which can help their immune system be even stronger. I would do probiotics. I would do digestive support. I would really focus on this and I wouldn't wait until my puppy had diarrhea. I wouldn't be waiting until my puppy had potentially food allergies. I would be doing this from the very, very start. And so I would add in maybe some prebiotic vegetables, some sardines potentially for really good omega-3, maybe some slippery elm, maybe some marshmallow root for really good gut support. I would be making sure they have a really good high quality probiotic that has a prebiotic in it. I would be focusing on really trying to minimize inflammation so that way they can be as healthy as possible. I probably also wouldn't blindly follow a one size fits all vaccine schedule. I'm not saying I would not vaccinate my puppy. I'm saying I'd be very intentional about when and what they were getting. I would do core vaccines only and I would separate them, likely. And now core may be different for different areas of the country. So down here in Florida, and this is not just for Florida, but being in Florida, lepto is a really big issue. I consider it a core vaccine. If you're up in the Northeast where there's a lot more ticks, Lyme disease is more prevalent. That may be considered more core. And so I would look at what is considered core based on my dog's lifestyle and where I am located. I would focus on those first and I would separate them out as best as possible. And when I say separate them out, waiting at least 2 or 3 weeks between vaccines, not several days. So that way the immune system for the vaccines you are giving, that the immune system is being prompted appropriately. I would try and minimize the combo shots as much as possible. Now, some of the shots that we give, they are combo inherently. Like you can't just get a parvo vaccine. It is going to be combined with either parainfluenza, hepatitis, distemper. So most of these are combo just as they come. I probably would not be vaccinating while the body is under stress. So if there is diarrhea, if there is another condition going on, if they're teething potentially, I wouldn't be vaccinating them. I'd want their immune system as perfect as possible. Maybe you consider titers at some point. Now, this may be at maybe their follow-up at their year exam, but I think it's something I would explore about like when does that look like I could be doing that for my pet? And I would always be supporting their immune system before and after their vaccines, whether that's mushrooms, whether that's detoxing with like a milk thistle. I would absolutely be doing that to help support them. I would protect against fleas and ticks, and I would find that what works best again, where am I located? What is my lifestyle? If you're someone that goes hiking with your dog and you live in North Carolina, you're going to be more exposed to that stuff than maybe somebody who lives in a high rise in the heart of a city. So being mindful of your location. This is why there's not always a one size fits all. There can be recommendations that are proper based on location and lifestyles. And I would look at that. And so I would choose low tox products. I would choose natural as much as possible, but being mindful that natural sometimes, when it comes to natural versus conventional, sometimes one wins over the other, depending on what we're talking about. There are times where, yes, I think that more natural has an option over traditional. And then there are times where I'm like, natural may not cut it in this point. We may have to go traditional. So choosing low toxic products and checking your pet to make sure that are they effective enough. Use them when exposure is high. I live in a city. My dog, I don't go hiking with him. I go on walks with him. His risk for ticks is extremely low. So if I got a puppy today, I probably wouldn't be putting them on tick prevention or using anything for ticks. I have such a low risk. Notice I'm not saying zero. I have such a low risk. Now, if I lived in somewhere that was very wooded and there was a lot of ticks, I would be more focused on that. I would support his or her, depending if I got a puppy today, liver as much as possible if a topical or oral is used. Again, going back to how can I help them detox? So that way I'm preventing against what I want to because there's a high risk while also supporting their detox pathways to help support their immune system. I would check for parasites before deworming. I wouldn't blindly deworm. I would be getting fecals, and personally for me, I like at least 2 negative fecals on my puppies and kittens back to back. Check those. Is there a warrant for? And now it's not uncommon. A lot of puppies, and I'm going to mention kittens, even though this was designed to talk about puppies, will have parasites. Some of them are transmitted across their mom's placenta. Some of them are transmitted in the milk. It happens. It's more common in puppies than in adults, but also having that result, that positive result before I were to deworm. I would use fear-free methods. I wouldn't use punishment-based training. Although I do think there's a place for positive and negative reinforcement. Think about you as an adult. Yes, it's good to know when you do stuff good, but also sometimes you have to know when you do stuff bad so that you don't do it. That doesn't mean it's a punishment based. It can be correction based. I would support socialization over overstimulation. So socializing them appropriately. If that I want them to be social with other dogs, maybe I want them to be familiar with cats. I want them to be familiar with children versus elderly. I would do that, but I wouldn't overstimulate them when doing it. I wouldn't just throw them into an overpopulated area. Especially, again, being mindful if you're going to vaccinate them, what are you vaccinating for, and are you really spreading it out? Now, you can spread them out. Let's say you only want to give one vaccine at a time. You can. What you need to be mindful of is that it's going to take a little bit longer, which is totally fine. Just means you're going to have to adjust your lifestyle, which is totally fine with socializing them in public. And depending on your vet, you may just have more vet visits. Again, this is all okay. It's just making sure your expectations are being met and then you've been communicating about this. You can use calming herbs for big transitions or asking them for big things if you're going to socialize them. This may be mushrooms. This may be certain strains of probiotics. This may be other supplemental herbs. And making sure they have a safe place to decompress and rest, an area that is just theirs where they feel safe, where they can retreat, where they can regulate their nervous system. We don't talk about nervous systems enough with our pets, and it's just as important with their stress and their immune system. And so making sure early on, especially if you live in a very busy household, or maybe you live in a very noisy environment, you're in a high rise, you're in a city, or you're in a condo, that you have a place where they can just go and retreat and reset. So important. And then I would honestly focus on what I would say the boring stuff, the water, the bowls, the bedding, like if they're sleeping with me, the detergents, the sheets. It sounds so small. These things can add up. The water that your dog or cat is drinking, they're doing that every day. So can you use filtered water for them? Have you done a water analysis on your water that you're serving them from your home? Is there anything abnormal that you need to know about? Whether that's for their health or is there extra mineralization where they can be prone to urinary crystals? Cleaning their food bowls and the floor around them. Being mindful of the chemicals that you're using. Are there fragrances? Are there maybe disruptors in there? It sounds boring, but it can be so impactful. And it's just so easy. And here's the cool thing is that it can impact your health too. I wouldn't do Febreze or Fabuloso or Glade or toxic candles. I wouldn't have any of that, especially any plugins near my dog. I wouldn't. And I will tell you, up until a few years ago, I was big on fragrance. I mean, when I was younger, I went to Bath and Body Works like it was going out of style. And the more again, when you know better, you can do better. So I don't have any of that. I don't burn candles in my house. I have very select candles that are on a warmer. I'm very mindful of the ingredients in them. I'm really mindful of the detergent, so I would be very mindful if I got a puppy today, what detergents I'm using to use on my sheets if they're going to sleep with me eventually, or in their bedding or what their bedding is made out of. I wouldn't do plastic bowls. I would stick to stainless steel, glass, or ceramic. Again, being mindful of the stainless steel and ceramic, that it's, as healthy as possible, that there's not added metals to it that could be harmful. I would make sure that they're getting movement and enrichment and connection as much as possible, that they are getting stimulation, that they are, whether it's food puzzles or snuffle mats, or when I'm walking them outside, getting them that enrichment and stimulation. And again, this is another boring thing, but I would be mindful of the daylight they're getting. Are they getting proper daylight in the morning and in the evening to help their circadian rhythm? We don't talk about this enough, but our pets and their sleep cycles are just as important as ours. And so making sure that they're being supported and that they're being given the proper tools so that their natural sleep cycle can be as natural as possible as well. Making sure they're getting good sunlight in the morning, making sure that we're maybe leaving some blinds open for them so they get natural light. Again, we have to be a little mindful of their quirks, that what could stress them out or trigger them, but providing that for them to help set up their immune system. I would not be waiting until my dog was sick, my puppy was sick, to start supplements, to start focusing on their gut health, to start focusing on detox, to start focusing on inflammation. I would start from day one. I would be looking at omega-3s, like fish or krill oil, or like I said, sardines. I would be doing gut supporting supplements, either a colostrum or a probiotic with prebiotics, looking at maybe even like slippery elm, marshmallow root, supporting that gut from day one, not waiting until there's an issue. I would do joint support, and sometimes the omega-3 can really help with this. I would be looking at, if I'm worried my dog is going to be allergy prone, having quercetin in it, again, omega-3. I would think about maybe a turmeric-based supplement to help support inflammation from the very start and build that strong immune system. I would do antioxidants, whether it's in fresh food toppers or a supplement. I would consider mushrooms and using them for different purposes for immune support. If I got a puppy today, I would be doing things very differently than I did in the past. And not that I did things in the past poorly, I would just be very intentional. And I will tell you, my dog is going to be 8 this year. He may even be 8 by the time this podcast comes out in July. That I got very lucky, and I think I was very intentional with him. So I did feed him a very traditional, what I felt was a decent kibble up until almost a year ago, and he did great with it. I was very intentional because he is a white-footed dog. And you may know, or if you're in the veterinary industry, or if you've had dogs that have white feet, they tend to be a little bit more sensitive to allergies. So it's been very intentional. He's never really been a big treat. I've never really bought treats for him. I have done dental snacks for him with intention for them to be for his teeth. Been very intentional about when he's gotten them. And I think that's really helped his immune system. He has had a few allergy flare-ups. In fact, he just had one this past spring when we had a lot of pollen. And I was very intentional on using a supplement that was geared towards allergy management, using like what I would consider nature's Benadryl, which is quercetin. And I was able to avoid the cytopoint this year. He doesn't need a cytopoint every year. He's had, I think, three, maybe four. I know no more than four in his whole entire life. In fact, he had diarrhea the first time ever that I've had him back in May after his dental cleaning. Again, if you listen to that podcast, you heard where I was not blaming the dental. I think it was just the perfect storm of anesthesia, maybe a little stress from being at the hospital, and maybe the bacteria, being cleaned from his mouth. First time he's ever had diarrhea. And I really have to credit, yes, I think genetics may be part of it. It's possible. Also, he can be he can be a very sensitive guy. He can get stressed very easily, anxious very easily. He doesn't like things that are loud or moving fast, like garbage cans or suitcases. So he's not like he's a chill guy, but he also has his quirks. And so I really believe because of those, he could be a dog that could be at the vet all the time with issues because stress affects the immune system, which affects the gut, or stress affects the gut, which affects the immune system. I think because I've been so intentional about his food, and now I've just made it even better because when you know better, you can do better. And the treats he's gotten, and supporting him when I give him preventions and helping him detox, and being intentional about what vaccines he's getting. I think it's really led to him being healthier. And now I don't know what's in store for the future, but what I do know is that I'm trying to support him as best as possible and not waiting till there's issues. And so that's what I would do if I got a puppy today. I would not wait until there was issues. I would be so proactive about their gut health, their detox pathways, their inflammation. And something else I didn't talk about, which is kind of boring, but longevity builds it, the toys they're chewing. Cleaning them, replacing them, making sure they have stuff to chew on. So that way their gums are getting circulation, which allows for better oral health. That's something else. I would be focusing on oral health from the very beginning. I wouldn't be waiting until their first dental cleaning or until I felt like their breath stunk. I would be doing dental powders, maybe kelp-based. I would be brushing or rubbing their gums as much as possible, at least 4 or 5 days a week. I would be so proactive. If I got a puppy today, I would not be waiting until there's an issue. I would be supporting their health from all avenues. Again, their gut, their inflammation, their oral health, their joints. I would make sure that they're always at an ideal weight so it can support their joints and support their inflammation. Dogs who are overweight have inflammation. Baseline, they do, because extra fat is inflammatory, and that's so much harder on the joints, which causes inflammation. It is just the root cause. So that's what I would do if I got a puppy today. And if you're a cat owner and looking to get a kitten, you can translate a lot of this to your cat as well. And going back to the more sexier topics, I would be so intentional about food. I would be finding a food that was as least processed as possible, making sure it's going to support them as they're growing. And that's what I would start them on. And I would be rotating. I would. Now, that may look different for every puppy or kitten on how often you can rotate, whether that's every week, whether that's one in the morning and one at night, whether it's every 2 weeks, but I would be adding variety. I would be doing fresh fruit toppers. I would be so intentional about supporting that health and not waiting until there's an issue, not waiting until there's a fire. I would want to put out as many fires as possible. So, if you're looking to get a puppy or when you get your next puppy, think about this. If you know someone who just got a puppy, I invite you to share this podcast episode with them or this YouTube episode with them. If you're wanting more one-on-one support, I invite you to schedule a one-on-one nutrition or lifestyle consult with the link below. Have a beautiful day.